Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have a special edition tonight with Dr. MzMugzzi and her guest, Duncan O'Finioan. This is unscheduled, unscripted. We're trying to get Duncan online right now, so bear with us.
I'm wanting to interview Duncan for 2.5 years. He is a brilliant mind, has extraordinarily unusual gifts, and there is a lot to him that I still think that we all need to learn. I'm going to ask questions about MKUltra because I think he's probably one of the most informative on this subject, both as being a candidate for it, but also overcoming it. Duncan, in your opinion, how many different programs do you think are out there that's going on right now?
Yeah, the whole MKUltra thing, MKUltra is just a very broad term. MK meaning mind control, ultra mind control. People think it was started during the Nazi reign. Actually, it's been around for a lot longer than that. It was actually started in this country with Prescott Bush, and it was given to the Nazis to work on and build upon during the World War II era, and be a project paperclip after World War II, brought back to this country along with, it was taken to Russia, Great Britain, some were even given to China, and et cetera, and it was expanded upon. But the way these projects work, there can be hundreds and hundreds of sub-projects under the umbrella of MKUltra, and they shift people around in these projects. You can be in Project A on Monday, Project XYZ Wednesday, the following Monday you're right back to Project C or D. I mean, that's just how it works. It depends on what you're good at, what your skill levels are, what your natural born gifts are, and what and how they can exploit that, and on it goes. People need to understand that the people in charge of these projects use an individual everything they got until they're used up, and then they're normally retired, about to pass, whatnot, or sent off to the hereafter. But we were talking about some of the things that have happened over the past, let's say 9 months to a year, with some of the shootings that have been going on. Those are your quintessential Manchurian candidate subjects, people that are engineered, trained, and impeded to do one specific job and one specific job only. And I will add, it's been said for a very long time that people like myself, Corso, and some others were Manchurian candidates. No, we never were Manchurian candidates.
That is one subject that just turns my stomach because I deal with a lot of spiritual topics, and to me, being a Manchurian candidate or an MKUltra candidate takes away your free will, does it not?
Well, what you have to understand is they implant alternate personalities. The person who commits a crime or the massive atrocities that we've been seeing for the past few months or even the past few years are not really the person committing those crimes. You are implanted with an alternate personality, and that is, okay, I have to back it up. I can only say to this part what was done with me during my group. I have no clue what they done with groups after me, but with me, it was done with severe torture, trauma, combination of hypnosis and specific drugs to where alternate personalities were put into the psyche. We were basically split, and once the first split of the psyche is accomplished, then it becomes much easier to add more and more alternate personalities, with each alternate personality having a specific genre, a specific job, a specific purpose, which is so much different than a Manchurian candidate.
Okay, Sasha Fierce, who is an ultra personality for Beyonce, how is that different from splitting the consciousness to house another personality, and where does that other personality come from? Sasha Fierce, who is Beyonce's ultra personality, it said that she's a dark entity that takes over Beyonce's body when she's on stage. stage.
Oh, is this the lady that's from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands?
Maybe. I don't know. Here's the scenario. Her fiance was murdered, and out of the ashes came Sasha Fierce, who is this voluptuous, sexy, demonic entity that takes over her body. How is that different from MKUltra and splitting the personalities? Is the personality splitting your consciousness for somebody else to come in?
Okay, now I understand what you're saying. It doesn't matter if I know exactly who you're talking about or not. Now I understand what you're saying. There's two ways that can be done. In my case and several others, we were split and alternate personalities created. Okay, some were given names, some were given code names, et cetera, et cetera. Each one had a specific purpose. Now what they do is they build up a mental or a psychic wall in the brain, in your brain and your mind, which is kept in place by an implant. Happened to me, that implant kind of got burned out, and it let that wall come down, so all the personalities and the memories started having a war inside my head. But I think what you're asking is there a way to push the born personality to the side, wall it up, and let a dark entity come in and take over? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, but also is that what's the MKUltra situation, or is that different where, like in Sybil, when the personalities were split, it was like another part of that person that came in as the protector or as the child? Or are these different people that are actually coming in?
There is a way, yes. There is a way, absolutely, to allow a dark entity to come in. And it's breaking all the rules there is. I don't know how to say that when you go into that short. There are rules that supposedly cannot be broken. A dark entity can only enter an individual if that individual, their free will says yes. Now, granted, a person can be physically and psychologically tortured to the point where they say yes. That is breaking the rules, but it has been done, and my guess it continues to be done. A lot of what's been going on for the past 30 years is, in a nutshell, black magic combined with technology. And my guess is that's pretty much what the lady you're talking about has had done to her. And given the fact it's the one that I think you're talking about, she's from the island of St. Thomas, a place I know very, very well. There's a lot of dark magic practice down there, and there's a lot of bases of operation that is carried on down there.
Okay, so let's take this to the next step. So I know that they can, and the rules that they're breaking, I know one of the rules that they have to break, and this has been told to me by my guys, is that they have to commit a murder. Because once they commit that sacred murder, then their energy drops to a level to where a dark entity can enter them. But you have to commit a murder. And then if you go and do your research and see how all these famous people had people murdered around them, it's kind of uncanny.
It is, but you have to remember also it has to be done by their hand.
Right.
They can't order it done. That's their person. They have to do it by child sacrifices are so big in so many of these projects, so that's why they use children for the adults do this heinous. I'll shut up about that one, but I'll go.
The other thing is that they violate the trust. That is another big no-no, is that when somebody trusts you and you lure them in with kindness or what have you, and then you end up murdering them, that's a big no-no.
Yes, absolutely right. And this fits right in with Miranda and I have been talking about. Everything is so out of balance right now, the dark side and the light side. It's so out of balance that the dark side is pretty much doing anything they want. And there's just not enough of people like us to hold the balance. It blows a lot of people away when you say there has to be a balance between dark and light, because you can't have one without the other. And there's a group of people that stands in the middle called the gray, and they try to hold the balance between the dark and the light, because that's where free will comes in, to choose light or to choose dark. But for a long time, the dark has just been overrunning everything, and that's why we're in the place we're in right now.
Yeah, I have experienced that. Like even at the grocery store, I asked the guy that was responsible for the vegetables, I said, is this GMO? And his face locked up, and I knew immediately that they sold GMO by the look on his face. And his comment was, well, we don't have to label it. The law says we don't have to label it, so we've done nothing wrong. And my reply was, it's morality. You're giving people cancer and tumors. You're making them sick. And just because you don't have to label it doesn't deny the fact that you have a fiduciary responsibility to your customers. You know, what are people thinking? It just drives me crazy. So the Manchurian candidate, from what I'm gathering from what you're saying, okay, so we have demonic rituals and these guys are doing their demonic thing and what have you so that they can make money and be on a stage. Big whoop, you know, they get their 10 minutes of fame. The MKUltra program, like what you went through, where they cause pain, grief, and horror to split the mind so that you can house another personality. From what I've studied in Psych 101, which isn't very much, but they said that in that situation that it's a part of you that comes in to heal that abuse. So it's just another facet of your personality. It's not a new entity. Would you agree with that?
I would. When you're talking about having someone go through torture to allow a dark entity to come in, that's one thing. That's way out there. That's totally different than just splitting someone's personality and implanting a new personality. In my case, we were tortured to the point that we had a choice to either just die or split off ourselves into an alternate personality. Now, what they did with us is they gave us a drug cocktail that was designed to keep us from fainting or blacking out from pain. So no matter how much pain we were in, we couldn't pass out. We couldn't black out. We couldn't faint. We couldn't. So we had a choice to either die or split off to save ourselves. And that's what happened. The ones who survived split off into an alternate personality, which is like a blank slate. And then the scientists who were doing this to us had that whole blank chalkboard to fill in, and then they could do whatever they wanted. They could make that personality into whatever they wanted. And once it was done once, it became very easy to do a second, then a third, then a fourth, and so on. Although when I do hear of some people out there having 199 personalities and whatnot, I do balk a little bit. I think for the most part, 4 or 5, in that range is about it that most people can have and remain and keep any kind of sanity. Personally, I have 4. I have 197, who is a soldier. I have one that we call the professor. And then we have what we don't know if it's an alternate personality or an order that we call the berserkers. And then what I have is what we call the little boy. It's a little 6-year-old boy. It's me, and it's trapped inside my mind at the moment that I split from being me to a total blank slate, and he's stuck in there. And Manchurian candidates, they don't actually split the personality. They implant orders. I've had people say you cannot hypnotize someone to do anything beyond their moral compass. Bullshit. Yes, you can. If you are under enough physical, emotional, and psychological trauma, and at the same time being implanted with orders, being told what your job is, what you will do, when you will do it, and how you will do it, once you are triggered, will do it, or you will die. It's that simple. And right now, my guess, my estimation, there are thousands of those people walking around right now.
I've watched your other videos probably a couple of times, and I've seen other ones as well. And if you guys have not seen Arizona Wilder's interviews as well, you might want to go check those out. But I'm glad that you didn't explain what kind of stressors you went under, because as an empath, I can feel your pain, and my hands just start shaking and the tears come down because I can't imagine a person, a human being, putting kids through that kind of trauma. I mean, what kind of a sick pup would you have to be to do that?
Well, not only that, most people think, they take a kid or young teenager or whatnot, and they take them into a laboratory to all this machinery and whatnot, and they do it. Not how it works, guys. It goes on for weeks and weeks and months and months. One of the things that they wanted with the I hate the term super soldier. I hate it with a passion because it's a Hollywood movie term that really doesn't fit with us. I would use the term more of an augmented human or an MKUltra soldier or something of that. I just hate the term super soldier. But what they wanted with us is a pain tolerance that is off the charts. So they would start us out small and every day increase. And we were put in a situation to where we didn't know if it was day or night, what day it was, what week it was, what year it was, or anything. When I was going through what they called treatments, which was in the laboratory, when I wasn't in there, I was in a small concrete room with an orange light bulb over the ceiling. That was it. I might have been in there for an hour. I might have been in there for 36 hours. I had no idea. The door would open. I'd be dragged back out, put back in the chair, and go through it again. But each time I was put in the chair, it was up another level to the point to where you have that choice, split off or die. And there was 1,000 of us in my group. This is what I was told 30 years ago. There was 1,000 of us from around the world in my group. Less than 300 of us made it. All the other kids died.
How old were you?
I was about 6 and a half, somewhere in there when I was first taken in. I remember being taken in and being tested for the program. I actually do remember the test. And then I remember being given a cup of Kool-Aid and then feeling very sleepy. And then from there, the next memory I had was about almost 4 years later. And so I was gone for about 3.5, almost 4 years, in which they had me doing. It took that long to implant the personality. It's not as simple. You don't want to implant a personality that's a total simpleton. Okay, you want to implant a personality that you can mold and teach and train, and that can listen and do everything that needs to be done. Not total, don't want to offend anybody, but just a total idiot, that can't walk and chew gum at the same time, which is a lot of times what would happen in these projects. Even if they did split off, the alternate personality that came out was just something that couldn't be used. And then those kids and those young adults, as it were sometimes, were considered expendable. And then they would be used in training of some of these other kids who did split off.
Okay, I know where you're going with this. Let's skip that part. How many nationalities are important for these MKUltra kids? What kind, like I know what you are, so how many what they call pure bloods or true bloods are they looking for?
I saw many different nationalities, actually, when I was in there. What I was told years and years ago, they were looking for specific blood types, and they loved the combinations. My blood type was one thing, I may be native, and they were looking for Native American combined with Celtic or ancient, or Old Norse. And there's been a real big misconception about that. See, my last name is Fanning, okay, as in Dakota Fanning. We're cousins. Dakota and I are very close cousins. And the root name of that is the clan O'Finioan. The clan O'Finioan is 3rd century A.D. Celtic, but it comes from the ancient Norse. The ancient Norse created a Norse settlement in the southern tip of Ireland in the 3rd century A.D. That's where O'Finioan comes from. So kind of a combination of ancient Norse, Celtic, and Cherokee. Now, the reason that they were looking for these specific bloodlines is, unlike a lot of other children from other bloodlines, I was never told that the things that go bump in the night weren't real. I was told, yes, they are real, okay? Like, a kid grows up, is very young, and can see ghosts. If that kid is told over and over and over enough, then they stop seeing the ghost. They're told enough that they don't exist. But if they're not told they don't exist, then they grow up to become psychic mediums, right? That's how it goes. I wasn't told these things weren't real because the Cherokee bloodline and the ancient North bloodline don't do that. They don't shy away from anything like that. They embrace it. And that's just my guess. That's one of the reasons that they wanted people that blood. That's why they went to small towns, small cities in Appalachia, and not just where I was from Kentucky, but from Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, California. I mean, I met people from all over the world that were in these projects.
Can I give you another hypothesis that, and please tell me your honest, don't hold back, your honest opinion, but you talked about the North and your clan, and bells are going off. Are we talking about the Nordics, the true Nordics, the DNA of the Palladians? Is there something to do with that? Is there any way that could all be tied together?
All I know about that is we're talking about the bloodlines of Odin. We're talking about the ancient Norse, ancient Vikings, down through the bloodlines from Odin and his court on down. That I do know. Anything beyond that would be pure hypothesis. I would say any guess is as good as, any guess is as good as any on that.
The next question that I want to go into is your gifts. You're not only psychic, but you have additional gifts that I don't think everybody's aware of. And please only share what you're comfortable with, okay?
Oh, no. I've been stuck. Let me just put this out there. And no, Andrew, I haven't had any gifts. God, I wish I had some right now. One of the biggest things out there is people talk about if you're able to have a discussion about this subject, then you were not involved in it. Okay, it comes down to personal choice. I made a choice years ago that no matter what the pain, what the suffering, I wanted to know. After I got all the memories back and all through that, I wanted to know. And when people hear Miranda and myself and Dave and a few more do interviews and we're laughing with each other and we're talking about all this horrible stuff, but we still have a sense of humor, what people don't see is the after. They don't see the migraines. They don't see the nosebleeds, okay? They don't see the loaded and cocked weapon in the hand outside at 3 a.m. because of what talking about this stuff does to us. But we made a conscious decision years ago that talking about it and trying to stop these projects was worth the pain and suffering that we go through with it. And if anybody's got a problem with that, come see me next month in Vegas. We'll talk about it face to face, okay? Now, I can tell you this about the bloodlines. This is not conjecture. This is not a guess. This is fact. One of the reasons that they wanted a specific group of us in these projects was to control us, to try and keep us under control. That was why they were looking for some certain bloodlines, genetic lines, etc. Not because they thought we would be great in the project. We would make great augmented, implanted soldiers or anything like that. They wanted us under their control for whatever reason. Now, they can't kill us. The black universal law says they can't kill us. That's why we're still alive. However, they have hired out third parties to try and do it for them, and they've gotten in some really, really hot water for that, trying to upset the balance of dark and light even more. But there's a lot of things out there that is about to be made public and clear that will shed a tremendous floodlight on all this, and people will start to see how this fits in with everything that's going on right now. And I know I got off subject a little bit. I'm sorry.
What gifts? See, this is what I'm thinking about is these gifts that come naturally that are passed down through the bloodline. My mom's a clairvoyant. My dad's side are all mediums, and I got slammed. So I know the same has happened to you. What gifts do you have that not everybody else has or is aware of that they have? I mean, getting off that helicopter and doing that was kind of impressive in a dark sort of way.
But the helicopter incident wasn't me. That was a group effort that happened that I was team leader for that. But that was a group effort. That wasn't me. That was a group of 12 kids joining hands and becoming one hell of a battery. That's what, basically what that was. And and then there was a 13th person involved in that who directed the energy. I was in the center of the horseshoe, semicircle. We call it the horseshoe. I was in the center of that, and I was, pulling it all to me and feeding it to somebody else. And that person directed it to where and how they wanted it to go. But I'm trying to figure out how to answer your question.
That's a human scalar weapon right there that you're talking about. Your intuition that you use, are you still relying on that like you used to? Is it getting better, stronger?
Can you hear that again?
Your intuition, your sixth sense, is it getting stronger?
It's always been pretty damn good. But I would say, yeah, it's getting stronger. Let me put this out there. We've been talking about, in a week, about the implants that are in some of us, right? Mm-hmm. Well, here's something that we started to hypothesize about 2 years ago. What if the implants in us aren't to make us better, but to inhibit what we really have? That's just a little theory that a few of us put together a couple of years ago, and I think we're right. And as far as what abilities I have, and et cetera, Corso can tell you a whole lot more about some of that I actually can. I can slow down time when I need to, and I don't want to ever walk through a wall again. That is scary as hell. I see things in the third eye before they happen, and when I act upon it, it's a good thing. When I don't act upon it, then I usually get the car wreck. Some of us are able to communicate pretty much 24/7 mentally, psychically. We're able to scream at each other. It's called the shout. There's two kinds of shouts. There's the greater shout and the lesser shout. We use the lesser shout to get each other's attention. The greater shout is mostly used as a weapon. It can be used to knock someone down or put them out. That's the greater shout. And it kind of goes on from there. A lot of it are things that we take for granted, and there are times we sit back and wonder why everyone else can't do it, because we use it. There was about 2 years ago, Miranda and I was cut off from the other side, which we draw from a lot. And I thought I was going to die. There was about 4 days there where we were completely cut off from the spirit world. And we literally had no abilities, no psychic communication with each other, anything like that at all. And I thought I was absolutely going to die. And then by the end of the 4th day, I get this voice in my head kind of says, "How do you like being human?" And I'm like, oh, crap. And then it all came back, snap of the finger, blank.
Okay, I have another tough question for you.
Sure.
All right. How is the Nazis, for better, getting these children? Some of them are brought into the program at 2 years old. Is this where the 300 families that support the 13 families, is that they just cough up their children? Or are they abducting them? I mean, where are they getting these kids? And they must have traced them somewhere that they would have that genetic stock to be able to do what they do.
Well, they've been able to trace us for a very, very long time. When a person goes through what is called the death throat, energy is released, even as a child. The stronger that person is, and I don't mean physically, I mean with the soul, the psyche, the spirit, etc., the stronger that person is, when they die, that energy is released. They use that energy to ramp for a project you're doing or whatever it is that they do. That's why they sacrifice specific people. But as far as tracking, oh, God, the technology has been around to track each and every one of us since at least the early 60s. I mean, I have a tracking chip in my left hand. Been in there, I know, for 40 years, but they use death throw energy for their own purposes. That's why someone who is being sacrificed they make it as horrendous as possible. They make it as psychologically scary to that person as possible. They literally try to scare them to death before they ever use an implement to take their life. And that is pure, solid black magic at its worst. And I detest anyone who uses dark magic.
If we stay on a positive line and we're protecting ourselves, that dark magic cannot be inflicted on us. Would you agree with that?
No. There are dark rituals specifically designed called cross directions. Let's say someone decides to do a dark direction spell on another person. Person that's find themselves losing car keys, for example, laying them down and not seeing them, tripping over their own feet when they stand up, all through the day in and day out. And what does this do? It keeps their mind focused on their, quote, clumsiness, unquote, and away from what it is their minds need to be on. That's called cross-direction spells. It doesn't matter how much protection you've got. Some of these spells work. The only way you can truly protect yourself from dark magic is to know it and to understand it and to use what we call the 3 S's, salt, silver, and sage. If you wear silver, if you use salt and burn sage regularly, you can severely diminish it, if not all out, move it away from you. But if someone has put you in their sights to use dark magic, you're in a world of hurt. And meditation and all that ain't going to do it. You have to be proactive in taking care of yourself. We deal with stuff like that every day.
That is fantastic information because most of us wear silver all the time anyway. What is your opinion on Orgon? Orgon jewelry, Orgon buried out in the backyard. What do you think about Orgon?
You haven't spent any money on it, have you? I'm going to make a lot of people mad. It's a lot of BS. It doesn't work. I've got about 2 pounds of it. I tried it out. People first started coming out with it and making it into a big deal. I've tried it. It doesn't do anything. There are symbols out there. Ancient symbols is writing. Writing is words on paper. Words have power. Words have meaning. There are specific symbols that can be used. Silver and salt are your 2 absolute best weapons because they are 2 universal constants, just like water. That's 3 elements, along with fire being 4, spirit being 5, that is found throughout the universe and throughout the entire 9 realms. And it's recognized in all 9 realms, all throughout the universe, for its specific properties. Protect yourself, use that. And that is the other thing you were asking me about talents and gifts and whatnot. Mine's fire. I can't be burned. It's almost impossible. I can literally draw flame into my left hand and put it down my right. I can take a 3-gallon pot of water that should take 20 minutes to boil. I can put my hand on it and boil it in 5 minutes because I'm fire.
Are you guys trained to do that, or is it something that you learned how to use?
It's what we were born with and exploited by the projects. That's the easiest way I know to say it. Anything that we had that we were born with was exploited.
What is your opinion on crystals, using crystals? I've heard so much about Atlantis used to use crystals and that we don't know how and that they have all this energy and stuff. So where do you stand on crystals?
I use crystals all the time. I use crystals in healing. I use crystals a lot when I trap demonic entities and pull them in the crystal. That's one of the things that we do with people who are afflicted. We literally draw them out and force them into a crystal. We then put the crystal in a steel container with sea salt and then bury it.
Can we all do that?
Not really, honey. No, not really, honey. It's not cool. I've been ripped to shreds by these things. The last job we did was in Salt Lake City. This thing got hold of my left arm, and let's just say my left arm was covered in blood. My entire left forearm was covered in blood when we were finished. And I was white as a sheet. It took that much power, that much energy to put this thing in a crystal. That's just one of the things that we do. That's ritual magic. It's very difficult to do. It's very time-consuming and very, very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody, but we're good at it.
We're glad you do it. I want to ask you if we could clear up the Manchurian candidate for one moment. There seems to be the Manchurian candidate in the front, and then on his left will be somebody that is feeding the information to the candidate. He's standing behind him, and it's almost like he's a computer, and his eyes are flapping up and down, his eyelids. And it's almost like he's giving data to the Manchurian candidate.
A lot of times a Manchurian candidate will have a handler very close by because the one thing they don't want is just take the Aurora, Colorado shooter as an example, which I was accused of being part of, very falsely, by the way. I had to get that out there, my nature. They try to put a handler as close by, like captured, because the last thing they want is that person to start sobbing and telling their side of the story. Like, I remember being hypnotized, I remember parts of this or parts of that, and whatnot. They want that person to remain stoic, totally out of it, in the courtroom, totally out of it, so that what the people watching the TV looks at is a total loner nut job. When actually that person isn't, they're being controlled. Now, with technology being the way it is now, I would say they probably put an implant in that individual and they keep somebody close by with what we call the magic box to keep them in control. Well, the magic box is just a preset box, from what I understand, that has different commands in it for the alternate personality that they put in there for that specific person and that specific job. Keep that person docile, totally, like the Aurora, Colorado shooter. When he's in court, he's sitting there totally staring off in the blank space. Jesse Ventura made a statement several years ago that is absolutely correct. There are CIA/NSA/DIA/ASSHOLES agents in every police department in this country, and they're very good at what they do. So, no, it is nowhere out of the realm of any possibility that one of those agents would be, quote, the arresting officer or part of the team that arrested the Manchurian candidate and who walked him into the courtroom and so on and so on, with the little magic box to keep that person totally under control.
Is this a magic box that the individual only has to see? Does it have a frequency or a sound? Or have they been programmed to see the magic box and then they know that they go into another ultra?
Well, no, I don't think it's anything they would have to see. I think it's just a little box with a couple of buttons on it that they press that activates an implant that reinforces the programming to just keep them under control while they're in the public eye. And when they're taken back to their jail cell, which usually these people are put in solitary confinement. They can scream, rant, rave, cry, whatever they want to do. Nobody listens. Nobody cares. But then when they come out to go to court, they push the button on the box. They totally change. They get this blank stare on their face again. They walk out into a courtroom. They sit there. Those award court proceedings are done. They come back to solitary confinement. I mean, have we ever seen any one of these so-called lone shooters, Manchurian candidate types, and all these ever actually go to trial? Does anybody ever remember one ever actually gone through a trial?
Aurora did.
He hasn't gone to trial yet. He's been up for arraignment. They all go through arraignment, yeah, but actually go to trial. The Arizona, the one that shot the Guilford, the congresswoman, she wasn't the primary target. The federal judge that was killed was the primary target. And you get collateral damage.
With your intuition, can you see the different timelines, the negative ones, the positive ones? And we'll just answer that, and then I'll take it to the next area.
I've heard a lot about that. I've actually witnessed timeline changes. It happened once in 1972. I was 12 years old, and I actually physically watched it. I witnessed things around me change. Huge flower bushes change colors. The house that we lived in go from being up on a crawl space to being flat down on a slab, the whole thing. And it made me sick. The thing with timelines, I've heard all this stuff about timelines, A and B merging. I don't honestly know if that will be a good thing or not, because with two timelines merging, you can't have a paradox. So what would the possibility be if timeline A and B merged and the person you're sitting next to right now disappears because in the other timeline they were either A, never born, or B, were killed? Would they disappear or would they stay? For me, two timelines merging, there's so much guesswork involved in it. But if you've got a really good timeline and a really bad timeline and they merge, what do you get? Something in the middle, a mediocre timeline? I think where I'm going with that is is, instead of trying to get everything love, light, great, hallelujah, angels circling overhead, get a balance first. If we can just get things back in balance. You know, you can't have dark without light. You can't have light without dark. There has to be both to have a balance. Everything is dualistic. That's just the way it is. That's just the way the architect made everything. And it's kind of like work inside the system, so try to work for balance, strive for balance. But the timeline thing, I mean, I just don't know if that's a good idea. I would really have to know what the ever timeline looked like. Now, if you're asking me, and boy, I'm rambling on it, if there are ever timelines, yes, absolutely, yes, there is. And I do know that the dark side has messed with timelines more than once to try to get an outcome that they want, to increase the power of their side, yes. But a total emergence of timelines, oh man, that's a lot of happenstance going on there. I just like to see the timeline we're in get its act together. Then we can move on. You're talking about merging.
What about the timeline that we are? Well, can we, okay, with our positive thinking, positive actions, meditation or whatever, can we take the timeline that we're on and put it into a higher frequency?
Okay. Now you want me to get into real metaphysical, real hard work stuff. I'm going to charge you for this interview. You know that? I want an ice cream cone. We're basically right now on a runaway train. And I know everybody out there who listens to these kind of shows have a better understanding than John Doe public does. Now, we've all heard the Hopi talk about the 5 cycles, the death, rebirth, and the 5 cycles and on and on. And that this is the 5th cycle and the last go-around is what I like to call it. You're right. This is the 5th cycle. This is the 5th go-around. Ain't going to be no more. Whatever we make out of it right now is what Earth has to live with. What this group that is running things right now, what they're trying to do is literally merge hell, H-E-L-L, hell, which is a real place, boys and girls. It does exist. It's a dimension. It's a different dimension. They want to merge that dimension with the dimension that we're sitting in right now so that there is literal hell on Earth. And I've seen it. I've been taken there, and I was begging to leave. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I was actually begging to leave. And that's what a group of us is really trying to fight to keep from happening. Now, there's a very, very old Catholic prophecy, which a lot of the Catholic prophecies actually came from even older prophecies, that at the last go-around, which is now, the end of the 5th cycle, which is now, whoever controls the most souls, because the human soul is the most powerful thing in the universe. The human soul is likened to a nuclear reactor or a small star. That's how powerful it is. That's why the different sides want to control the human soul. They need that energy. They want that energy. But at the end of the 5th cycle, whoever controls the most souls, i.e. has the most power, the most energy, rules. They rule. So basically it comes down to, do you want a reborn Earth with no technology, and you get to live, and you get to plant, you get to sow, on and on it goes, or do you want hell on Earth? That's the runaway freight train we're on. And I just don't know how to explain it any different.
What would you recommend for people to do so we can avoid hell on Earth and we can work together to bring this to fruition? What would you tell us to do?
Oh, hey, if you can get people to work together, that would be absolutely great. That's part of the main problem right now is you can't get people to work together. By lies, by hook, and by crook. The dark entities, and I'll just call them that for argument's sake, I'll just call them dark entities. They have been able through successive generations to control and maintain control over the human populace. Just watch a TV commercial, I mean, especially this time of the year, you know, the holiday season. I don't do holidays, so I don't watch the commercial. They tell you what you have to buy it because you have to have it. You need it. That's control. And one of the things that has to happen is the human race must break that control. And that's going to mean a total breakdown of everything you've ever known. That means total chaos for a while. And most people are not ready or willing to handle it. And when I say a total breakdown of everything, I mean everything. The banks have to be the first thing to go. They have got to be done with and gone, which means people will lose everything. To lose everything to gain your soul, because your soul is all you have. It's you. Your soul is you. And what's going to happen is the time's going to come when you will be willing to sell your soul for a slice of bread. That may be metaphorical, trying to put it in the context, but that's the way it is. You'll sell your soul for a slice of bread, for a drink of water. And that's why I said 2 years ago on stage, if you're going to die with your soul intact, because it's yours. And we all know there is no real death anyway. You know, we die here, we just move on to another place.